Okay. Zegu sa Guegu, Katsi'tsahén de Yujats, Waxkardelage, Danu Kanyakahaga, Zikanwaga Hirona, Ziwaganagare. Hello everyone, my name is Katsi'tsahén de Cross-Delisle, and unfortunately my co-worker Kelly Markley cannot be here to present with me, so we'll do this together. So on the agenda today, I have how the project started, the work that's involved in the project, the objectives and research goals, and what does this mean, the accessibility, and what does this mean for Indigenous communities. So just a little introduction on how this project started. It is a sub-project of the Jogge project. And we wanted to add to work that was done by John Hart with the Northern Iroquois and Social Network Analysis Project. And we wanted to add the sites that are here in Quebec, as he has already done the sites in the United States. Our aim is to digitize these collections so that they can be available for everyone to look at and to study, research, and whatnot. We are going to add that to a database, and then those pictures that are edited will be then added to an official website dedicated to the digital registry project. So we have different work involved in the digital registry. So first of all, we have to locate all the collections that are being studied in the project. Then Christian Gate St. Pierre has a team of students that are coding the pottery shards that are added to the database. Once those pottery shards are coded, then they're photographed by myself and then edited by Kelly Markley. Once all that is done, then we take all the photos and add them to the database, but also to the website that we may be able to do in phase 2 if we're accepted through SHRC. And then another part of the work that we need to do is also share the knowledge that we have and that we gain from looking at these artifacts and share it like within the community, but also share it within different sectors that are non-Indigenous. We also want to maintain the access to these collections so that we can provide opportunities for future generations to study these collections and to either continue the research once this is done or to start their own research projects. The objectives and research goals. So a lot of the objective of this work is, like I said, to share knowledge, but also to work in a co-construction way of working with Indigenous communities and non-Indigenous communities. We would like to create a safe space for Indigenous communities to be involved in these projects and in the processes so that we can all be on an equal playing field when it comes to the results of the information that we're gathering. And we also want to create a user-friendly website that is specifically used to look at the artifacts that are in the database, and then also to be used as an educational tool for our community and for other Indigenous communities so that they can understand our cultural past. So some of the research goals that we were working on is to add the Quebec sites to the John Hart project, and to look at the similarities between the prehistoric pottery that are in the United States, that are in Ontario, and that are in Quebec. So when we're looking at the designs of these collections, we're doing so that we can create a social network analysis of where these pots were found and if the material of the pot itself is from another place, so did it travel to where it was found or was it created in the place where it was found, so that we can have an idea of the trade network systems as well. And we also wanted to compare the results that we get from this information to what we already know in our oral tradition. So, for example, we know that our traditional territory is much larger than what is considered by the academic sources. And by looking at the different pottery shards, we can actually see that cultural knowledge is along those territorial borders or areas, and not just to what the scholars would say is our traditional territory. Another research goal is to create access to the artifacts for everyone. So a lot of the time, the artifacts that we're studying are stored away in boxes, and a lot of times we don't have access to them. And most of the time, it would be scholarly individuals that would have access to these artifacts. So a lot of the information that we know and that we have from these artifacts are kind of biased in a way that they're not seen through the world view of an Indigenous person. And so by creating this website that will have all these images, we'll be able to share that knowledge worldwide, and we'll be able to share it instantly. So when we're looking at working with artifacts physically, we don't have access to them as soon as we want them. Sometimes we need to wait months or years before we can even have a chance to be considered to look at the artifacts. So by having this website, we're able to share this information to the greater public at a faster pace. And then by having this digital registry, we're also in a way preserving the artifacts from any further damage that could happen after they're recovered from the ground. Because a lot of the times in the past, how the artifacts were stored were not in a way to protect them. It was just all put into one big bag and put into a box and put away. So a lot of the times when I'm going through these artifacts, at the bottom of the bag, there's so much soil because it's all of the breakage of the artifact. So I think it's important that if we have these digital registries, we don't have to continuously go and touch these artifacts, and like people will have the opportunity to look at it, understand it, and then if they do want to do further research where they do see it physically, then at least they have an idea of what they're looking for, and they don't have to go and affect the artifacts more than they already been affected by the collection process. So looking at the accessibility, I think it's really important because it will put a stop to the colonial fueled research that has been done on prehistoric pottery. So a lot of the times, scholars will argue to say that the prehistoric pottery, because it has a square top or a round top, will say that, well, these are not Kahnawake people, these are a different people. But in reality, a lot of the time, these shards are Kahnawake or Haudenosaunee pottery, but they would be considered something else only because of the worldview of the individual that's researching them. So I think it's important that we have this accessibility to the greater public and to give to the Indigenous communities, because then we can help the scholars understand these artifacts through our worldview as well. I think it's also would be a good tool to use to help educate Indigenous students and non-Indigenous students, but on the history of the land that's here and on the history of the people that are still here. Because that's like one of the largest issues that I notice is that in the academia that's written about the St. Lawrence Iroquois people, a lot of the times they say that they're all disappeared or they're not here anymore. And so I think it's important that we have resources like this registry so that people don't have to always just take what is written, and they can actually see it for their very own eyes and see the connections themselves instead of just going by what someone thinks that they know or don't know about the past. And I also think it would be a good way to educate the youth in our community about our past. So by having these images up for them to look at, they're able to either recreate the pottery themselves or use the designs in their beadwork or in the the tattoos that they get, or different things. Like there's even individuals that come to the community that create these recreations of prehistoric pottery and actually cook in it. So those are all traditional knowledge that we're regaining by doing work like this and by having this information available for people. And so this is just a little bio of who is working on the registry. So there's myself, and I started as an archaeological consultant in 2016, and I started repatriation of ancestral remains in 2019, and I'm currently working as archaeological consultant and the photographer of the photos. And Kelly Mark, we started archaeology in 2014, and she has worked in the lab and has done a lot of cleaning of the artifacts from 2014 to 2016, and she is currently an archaeological consultant, and she is editing the photos that we're going to look at. So what does this mean for Indigenous communities? So by having access to these artifacts and the material culture of the past, we have the opportunity to revitalize the information that's within these artifacts, and we also have the opportunity to express our cultural identity through the cultural materials that are in the past but that we can recreate in the present. I also think that it's important to have this access because, like I said, it provides a safe space to decolonize the colonial past and kind of, I don't want to say recreate, because I don't think that we really created good relationships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities, but I think that it will give us the opportunity to actually work together and understand that all of our ideas and all of our thoughts, all of our understandings should be seen as equal. Because at the end of the day, what they're writing is their thoughts and is their opinions. It's through their worldview. So I think it's important that we have that same opportunity. I also think by having this digital registry and having it accessible to the community, we're going to create a way to work on our identity as Kahnawake people, but also like how to share that to the outside world and to help them understand that we're not just a stagnant people. We're a people that move, and we're a people that we've done a lot in the past, and we're going to continue to do a lot now and into the future. And I also think that having access to this registry, not just for Kahnawake or Kahnawake communities, but for other Indigenous communities, I think it will be good for them to see how we stand in our worldview, so that they can create their own worldview and how they want the world to see them as well. And I think that by doing this and by having this, it's going to help the future generations, because they're going to be able to look at this, and we're living in a technical world where if they have it easy accessible for them, then they're going to want to learn it. Because all of us, we all had to learn through books, but the new generations, they barely have books. It's all online. So like the fact that we can have a website where they can use that in class, learn about the pottery and really see it with their own eyes and really understand that these pieces of pottery like came from the land that they're on, or came from the land that we originally came from. So like that kind of puts it into a better perspective than just like looking in a book and understanding that this is what makes us who we are. So I think that by having this digital facet, it's gonna help the future generations be more involved in the history that's being written about our people. And so just to summarize everything, I think it's important to digitize prehistoric pottery and other artifacts because it is beneficial for everyone. It's beneficial for the scholars who want to do the research, who will then have access to these images. It'll be beneficial for the communities by being able to express their culture and by being able to write it through their worldview. And then it will be beneficial for the people who are not born yet, because like I said, we're in a digital time. So by having this, the pottery is always going to be there. It's never going to deteriorate. It's there for them to understand and to love. And I think by doing this project and working with Pointe-à-Callière and the University of Montreal and the other museums and universities that we have worked with, I think it's a good way, or a good like step forward into creating bridges for the next generation, because we didn't have the opportunity to work together in a non-biased and a non-racial environment. But if we do more work like this, it's going to give the future that chance that we didn't have. So a lot of time as Indigenous people, what we have to say and what we believe isn't always taken at 100%. Whereas if a scholar who is from European descent, if they have this idea and they say, okay, this is what it is, a lot of the times academic will just say that, okay, yeah, you're right, that's fine, and let's move on. So I think by doing work like this, it's given us the opportunity to kind of stop people from doing that and kind of work towards, okay, so if you have this knowledge and I have this knowledge, let's share it and let's understand what the past really was like. So that's it.